Do believe live. Yes, we are.
We're live.
Okay. Welcome to the ninth episode of Battle Tested History. Today we will be discussing Operation Market Garden and why Montgomery was such a tool. To set the stage, June 6, 1944, of course, we Operation Overlord D-Day, we invaded Normandy. Monty was supposed to take Caen on D-Day +3, I believe it was.
Yeah.
It was July
Yeah.
before that idiot finally did what he was supposed to do. I guess I don't know if he was the best the British had, but he was the most popular, I suppose.
I think the only reason, and if any of the Brits out there are watching, please, I mean, sorry to pick on Montgomery, but I hate him. He was the only one that won the war in North Africa. Wavell, so many other of the generals out there just couldn't bring about the defeat of the Afrika Korps. He was fortunate enough to be there to launch the Battle of El Alamein roughly at the same time as the Americans landed in North Africa. He became a hero because of that. So, and I mean, his biggest flaw was he fought by the book.
Yeah.
If British intelligence said there's 100,000 people in Caen, 100,000 Germans, he would build up 300,000, 3-1 odds before he went in. And that was was, I think, his downfall. Whereas Patton would use the same intelligence. There's 100,000 Germans here. There's 100,000 Germans here. He'd take the Third Army right up through the center.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love the crossing of the Rhine.
Yeah.
Monty had this big, huge set-piece battle. Tim Brooks is here.
Hey, Tim.
And I'm not sure who the Facebook user is.
That's probably my NSA the guy who's following me from the NSA. Hey, dude, how you doing?
Probably. Let's see here real quick. Switch over here. It is Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer.
It is Jennifer.
How you doing?
Recently recovering from her traumatic brain injury. Basically, she just had migraines.
Oh.
They can suck.
Yeah,
anyway.
That's because she's married. So. Spouses can do that to you.
Exactly.
And I can say that because my wife is probably not going to watch this show.
Jennifer, a different stalker. Excellent. Anyway, so Monty has this big set-piece battle planned. Audio privileges due to my light dying. I can't see the type. All right, let me give this to Tim real quick. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves.
Okay. Well, as Jeff was saying, it took weeks. It almost took 2 months before they were finally to break out of Normandy.
Mm-hmm.
And the British were doing it extraordinarily slow. The British British armored unit got their asses handed to them by Whitman, who with like his Tiger wiped out I think it was 25, either destroyed and or put out of business 25 Sherman tanks. And when they finally broke out, it was a complete collapse. They put Patton out near the Cherbourg Peninsula, and they let him burst through. And once they let Patton go, it was just insanity. Hey, Tim.
There's Tim.
He was cutting across France so quickly, and then after the Fillet Gap, the British and the Americans closed the gap around Fillet and trapped hundreds of thousands of Germans. If you're a World War II fan, look up The Highway of Death. I went to visit for 1 year, and
I believe it began when
we're getting some background noise there.
Yeah, Tim, I think you got some serious background noise on your end.
That's done in a way that he feels safe. By the time he reaches
Tim, you guys watching something?
Disloyal, it was making him feel destabilized, and as a means to assert some sort of control, he goes to this extreme measure.
You turn the TV down a little bit.
They married in November 1951, separating only 2 years later. During this time, Frank
they took off. The Americans and the British did a pincer movement, wiped out.
Is it still there?
A little bit. Yeah.
A little bit.
Does he have headphones?
Of Ava, I felt that unrequited love that I think he carried for the rest of his life. It certainly translated into his music.
And after the pincer movement, after an entire German army was wiped out, they were on the move. They were just retreating, and that's where a British guitar picks up.
Everybody was touched.
Yeah, and this was the beauty. So they're all set up along the ride. Monty has this great set piece battle planned. He's got thousands and thousands of troops, thousands and thousands of artillery pieces. And then it's like we got game show music in the background.
That's not on my end.
He became leader of a group of celebrities dubbed the Red Pack.
Yeah, it's bad. I can't even hear Jeff.
Frank Sinatra, it's not exactly I should say, he really put Vegas on.
All right. All right, you can shut me off. That TV's bleeding too loud in over here, so you can go ahead and shut me off.
Sorry, buddy.
Sorry, Tim.
Anyway, so we've got, so I think it was Devers who snuck units across the Remagen Bridge.
Yeah.
And then Monty is still plodding along, making his preparations to, do this big set piece thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Patton sneaks across, calls up Bradley, and Bradley says, no, don't put any troops over yet. Yes, but we're already there. You want me to leave?
Yeah. I mean, it was, they pointed out at the beginning of the movie, both units were both armies were moving so rapidly they couldn't keep up with the fuel demand. Patton was making the most headway, but the British were pissing and moaning because they weren't getting the press. Churchill complained to FDR, and it came down to Eisenhower. And this was one of the very few mistakes I think Ike made. To placate the British, he went with this plan, Operation Market Garden, which on the surface sounded good. There were no German troops. They take an armored division, they drop the paratroops, across all the bridges, run through in 3 days, boom, they cross the Rhine River. The next thing you know, they're aimed right at the heart of Germany.
And it was, on paper, it may have seemed like a good plan, except for the single road, the road of death. Yeah. Having to push an armored division up that one narrow, totally exposed road.
Yeah.
And have the entire operation hinge upon those guys getting up that road. 68 miles or something like that.
Yeah.
There's no way it was going to work because of that one damn road.
Well,
They would have had to have been so lucky.
I love the scene with Michael. Michael Caine was one of my favorite characters. He was I can't remember his name, Volcourt or something. Volker. He was the commander of the 30th Guards that was leading the drive.
Right.
And like 5 minutes into it, the Germans, fight them. They blow up a bunch of Shermans. There's a big battle. They take it out. They're already behind schedule, and it's not even hour one. And one of the commanders is complaining to him. And I love it when Michael Caine says, but this is the good part. The rest of the road is one lane from here on in. And, yeah. I mean, it was stupidly planned.
And, well, in the first place, it was uncharacteristically audacious.
Yes.
That was not a typical Monty plan. It wouldn't surprise me if he floated the idea simply to be a thorn in Eisenhower's side.
I thought he was, I think he was so full of himself, he thought he could get away with this. The Germans were falling apart. He'd just drive up there. You know, the movie itself is so accurate before the airdrop, like when Horrocks, Edward Fox comes out. And which the movie itself is very true. I love it when he comes out. This is a story you'll tell your grandchildren, and mightily bored they'll be. They thought this was going to be a cakewalk. After the first, after the last couple of weeks, even Rundstedt says, in the movie they got it wrong, but in real life he said, we're losing faster than the Allies can win.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought they were going to get away with this. But what I loved in the movie was the Danish resistance, who said they're not running anymore. They're getting ready. They're getting ready to fight. And the fact that there was so much intelligence saying that, because when Rundstedt was looking at the battle map, he had the SS Panzer Army, the 2nd SS Panzer Army, made of the 9th and 10th Panzer Divisions, two of the best Panzer Divisions around, that had just come out of combat in Normandy. He was looking for a place to put them. Where does he drop them? Arnhem, figuring nobody would be insane enough to try to take Arnhem. And it's true, as in the movie, when that guy, by the way, Miller's name in the movie, the intelligence officer, was actually named Urquhart. But they changed it in the movie because Sean Connery's character was Urquhart. They were afraid of confusing it. But when he came out with all the intelligence saying, look, there may be more here than than you're thinking, they just pushed him aside. They didn't want to hear it.
Exactly. And well, the whole thing was put together in like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Which was, again, completely uncharacteristic for Monty.
Yeah.
And as Tim pointed out via instant message, let me read this. Well, everyone knew the first 2 bridges were heavily defended, and the last one with the least intelligence. So give the hard job to the Americans and the easy ones to the Brits.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the way it went. But the Brits got the prestige.
Yes.
They were the ones running up the road. They were the ones at Arnhem.
Yeah.
And were they the best ones to do that? Who knows? The drop zones in Arnhem were 8 miles out of town.
I know.
How can the whole thing with dropping paratroopers is that you can drop them right where you need them.
Yeah.
Not 8 freaking miles out of town.
The movie is extraordinarily accurate. If you haven't watched it, or if you have, there's very few historical inaccuracies in it. And most of them, like Elliot Gould, his character didn't exist. He's a compilation of like 15 other people from the book. They just made him into one character. Other than few little things like that, it's absolutely true. The Polish general, played by Gene Hackman, Sobieski, walked up during the briefing and said, "Which side are you on?"
Yeah.
When Urquhart, Sean Connery, when his unit landed at Arnhem, there were escapees from an insane asylum laughing at them. I mean, it was just the radios didn't work. Fog prevented the reinforcements.
Yes.
You know, without the radios, they couldn't tell the not the Luftwaffe, the RAF, don't drop in the drop zone, drop it over here at the hotel where we're stuck.
Why did they drop 8 miles out?
It was it wasn't as much parachuting as it was
gliders.
Thank you, gliders. So they were dropping the gliders there because the gliders were going to bring in the Jeeps and all the equipment, and that was the only field available. And they screwed that up because when they landed, the Jeeps weren't properly mounted. Almost every one of the Jeeps got wiped out. So what was supposed to be a quick 8-mile drive into Arnhem became a nice 8-mile walk in the middle of 2 SS Panzer Division.
With half of their equipment gone.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, plus the Brits were kind of fighting 2 wars at once. They were fighting the Second World War, obviously.
Right.
But they were also kind of fighting the first one.
Yeah.
And the first one butchered an entire generation of British men.
Yes. Yeah.
So they were real gun shy. Understandably so. To destroy 2 generations would have been, you may as well just kiss England goodbye.
Yeah.
It would cease to exist. I love this because I learned everything I missed in school.
I never even looked. Every class I took in high school, like they took us right up to the beginning of the Civil War. That year ended. Then the next year they began with Reconstruction. They took us right up to World War, and World War II was covered in an afternoon.
Yeah, World War I was barely mentioned.
Yeah. They don't cover all this stuff. That's why high school history is crap. The reason, and this movie has a very special place in my heart. My father was a war fanatic. He loved it. He was a Marine, and him and I used to watch war movies when I was a kid. And when this movie came out, we went to the theater to see it. And I mean, every time I watch this movie, I think of my old man sitting there with me. And we were both, I mean, I was shocked at the end of this movie when after the, I think Liv Ullmann and Sir Laurence Olivier leave the broken house and the credits roll, I was absolutely shocked that we lost a battle in the war. Because I had been told all through after Normandy, it was just, we steamrolled the Nazis right through into Berlin.
Which, of course, ignores the, let me think, Battle of the Bulge.
Oh, yes. Battle of the Bulge, Operation Garden, the Hammelburg Raid.
The Hammelburg Raid, the Herky Forest.
Yeah. Oh, God, yes.
That was a, yeah. So, yes, it wasn't all sunshine and roses.
No.
We didn't show up in Normandy and suddenly war's over.
Yeah.
There was a lot of fighting, a lot of dying. And a lot of it happened. Well, the aftermath, once they finally realized that no, Arnhem wasn't happening. They had to pull. Well, they left like 2/3 of the entire British division behind.
Yes, yeah. They left a lot of them. They retreated.
Yeah.
I think Sobieski's, and I know I'm pronouncing the name of the Polish Brigade, took such a pounding trying to cross the river to get Sean Urquhart's troops out, and then they fell back to Nijmegen.
Yeah,
they fell, and then the thing about it was they had lost so much that the 87th, 101st, the 30th Armored Corps all had to go and replenish, which gave the Germans the time to man the Siegfried Line, build up in the Hürtgen Forest, get everything ready.
Yes, exactly.
One thing they don't talk about, there was no battle after this. Patton was stopped and told to stay where he was. And from September, for the next 2 or 3 months, except for the battles in the Hürtgen Forest, which was just almost like World War I. I mean, guys would be dying to get a couple of yards of land. The next big military campaign in Europe was the Battle of the Bulge.
Yes.
And we still weren't ready for that one.
No, and even after it, we spent most of that winter, which was the worst winter on record in Europe at the time. Most of that winter they spent getting back to where they started.
Tim brings up a really good point about that, and that's in the movie when Gavin's yelling at him, "Why aren't you advancing?" He's like, "We don't have the support troops. There's only 5 tanks." I mean, if they could agree to have used the Americans,
Patton would have sent the 5 tanks.
Oh yes, Patton would.
Oh hell yes, he would have sent the 5 tanks. The movie A Bridge Too Far, which is based on Cornelius Ryan's book. Cornelius Ryan is the same one who wrote The Longest Day.
Yes, another fantastic movie.
Another fantastic movie, another fantastic book.
And he wrote my favorite book of his, not The Final Battle. I think it's The Last Battle. It's about the fall of Berlin.
Right.
And he does it from the American, French, German, Soviet perspective. It is just amazing, the shitstorm that went down in Germany those last couple of months. But yeah, it's a brilliant, and since, with Battle Tested, the only flaw I have with the movie is Browning, Dirk Bogarde, the head general, is made out to be such a friggin' asshole in the movie. He isn't. He actually said, and at the end of the movie, that Dirk Bogarde, when he's talking to Sean Connery, says, "I always thought we'd gone a bridge too far." And Browning argued with Montgomery, "This is never going to work. We're never going to get there. We might take Nijmegen. We should probably just hit Nijmegen, go that far." He even said to him, "Monty, we're going a bridge too far." But Monty wouldn't listen. Monty was the greatest general that had ever lived, at least according to Monty.
Yep.
And in the movie, he is technically Montgomery, ignoring the advice, ignoring the intelligence. In real life, Browning was a very good, very respected general. That's my only flaw with the movie.
Yeah, and well, to address Tim's question, the American infantry was there, and in the form of the paratroopers, but because the Brits were running this show, and because Monty wanted the glory, there's no way he'd have brought the Americans into Arnhem.
But one thing that makes me wonder, and I gotta look this up, couldn't Horrocks have said to Gavin, "Hey, let's go"? Was it Gavin or Taylor that was at the Nijmegen?
Gavin, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
Gavin.
He should have said to him, let's go. Come on. Bring you. We've already got the place. Let's go. Gavin would have done it in a heartbeat. Now, did Horrocks not think of it? Did Horrocks suggest it and get shot down?
Probably.
Now I got to look that up.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, now, granted, they needed to leave a force in place at the bridges,
right,
to make sure the Germans didn't retake them.
Right.
That made sense.
It did. Yeah.
But the 82nd and the 101st Airborne were arguably the best troops the Allies had.
Yes.
British 1st Airborne were good, no question about it. And the glider-borne troops were fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
But they had British leadership. They had Montgomery.
They had great leaders in Arnhem, but they were just outnumbered.
They were outnumbered. In fact, the 30 Corps got to the outskirts of Arnhem.
Yeah.
3 or 4 days late.
Yeah. They were in the church overlooking the river, and they couldn't get across because by then, Bittrick's 9th and 10th Panzer Divisions had surrounded the city, and they didn't have the armor.
Yep.
One thing about this movie I did like, it portrayed it also from the German point of view.
Yes.
And it didn't portray them as barbarians. Bittrick was a very good general. I don't even think anybody even considered him for war crimes trials.
I don't believe so. No.
Yeah, it was my favorite scene in the movie, though, is in Arnhem when the German soldier comes up with the white flag and says, I'd like to discuss terms of surrender. And Frost tells the interpreter, tell him to bugger off. And then the interpreter's like, sorry, we can't accept your surrender now. We don't have enough room. And the German's like, what? But it was an embarrassing battle for the Americans. And the something was, there still was the chance of victory. It was the German commanders on the ground who pulled it together and stopped them. If you didn't have men like Bittrick, Model was an idiot. Yeah, I think he died in this battle, didn't he? Wasn't this the one he was like running away and he got shot by paratroopers? Or was that in a later battle?
I forget. He made it all the way to the end of the war, though.
Model did? Oh, maybe it was somebody else.
I believe so.
Oh.
In fact, I think he was. Wasn't he tried at Nuremberg?
If he was tried much later. He wasn't at the original Nuremberg.
No.
Now I'm looking him up. Oh, no. Okay. Moritz Walter Model, German. He died April 21st, 1945. He died in a battle outside in Germany. He didn't die in this battle.
Right.
It's a good movie. It really is.
Great movie.
Most war movies I watch, Jeff and I watch, are so crappy. They're so historically inaccurate.
Yeah.
This is one of the, maybe the top 3 movies where if you watch this and then, like I did, and then go read the book, you'll find that the changes they made, except for the whole thing about Browning being the jerk, you can understand why they did it. But it really is accurate. It displays what the British were thinking, what the Americans were thinking. Every scene in it, like the one when the James Caan character finds his lieutenant shot in the head. brings him back and holds the doctor at gunpoint.
Yes, that actually happened.
That actually happened. And when he went to trial, it wasn't the doctor who did the 10 seconds, but when he went to trial, the judge advocate said, okay, you're going to throw you in jail for 10 seconds. He counted to 10, then he saluted him and let the guy go.
Yep. Now, the Americans were kind of victims of their own hubris as well.
Yeah.
Because the way it's portrayed is that we went in there, we kicked everybody's ass. We were like, USA, USA. The fact of the matter was, anytime the Allies faced the German army on anything like parity, a one-to-one basis, Germans usually won. They were some damn good soldiers.
They had up until the last 5 or 6 months of the war, they had the most experienced troops. I mean, some of these guys had been fighting since Poland or even before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they had superior armor, even though it was dwindling rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they started introducing some of those, like the jet fighters and the rocket fighters, it took a toll for a little while on the 8th Air Force.
Sure.
One of the things that killed them was the fact that even when we were bombing them, the strategic bombing campaign, Albert Speer was able to increase war production.
Yes.
It was just the fact that they could not fight a two-front war against two gigantic allies, especially the Soviets, who didn't give a shit. They would send a division through and let them get what they had, the penal divisions. Oh, you did something stupid. They'd send these guys in to get slaughtered, to blow up the minefields, to waste the German ammo. And then they'd send in the top divisions to overwhelm the German forces.
And it worked.
But when you look at the Battle of the Bulge, December 1945, caught us with our hands down. I mean, there was no way the Germans could have won the Battle of the Bulge, but it was bloody for us. Hammelburg raid, March 1945. Patton sent a small unit of the Third Army to rescue his son-in-law, who was held in a prison in Hammelburg. Even 3 months before the end of the war, the Germans in the area wiped it out, just completely obliterated and captured everyone.
Yeah, that was while Patton was sitting around with his thumb up his ass.
Yeah.
He made his only real blunders. One was the raid.
Yeah.
The other was Metz.
Yeah.
Metz, had he been mobile, Patton would have bypassed Metz completely and just cut it off.
Yeah.
And kept fighting. But because he couldn't go anywhere, and he wasn't just going to sit there, he attacked Metz. He ended up losing a bunch of troops doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he won because he's Patton. But, yeah, I mean, the American forces weren't perfect.
No.
But they had some really good generals. The British forces weren't perfect, and unfortunately, they had Montgomery.
They did. And I mean, having a guy at the top who wasn't good, but they had some phenomenal generals. They had their phenomenal. I mean, I'm sorry. I love in the and it's in The Longest Day when they took Pegasus Bridge and they marched in with a bagpiper.
Yes.
The guy they walked in with a bagpiper and they said, because they knew no German would want to shoot somebody who was that friggin' brave.
Yes.
And he made it all the way to Pegasus Bridge.
Now you want to read a good, quick war story. Read Pegasus Bridge.
Okay.
By Stephen Ambrose.
Oh, Stephen Ambrose is great.
It's great. It's thrilling what they did, and how it shows. It also shows that one of the big problems with the Allied Army is that these specialized units, like like the paratroopers and glider forces at Pegasus Bridge, or like the 82nd and 101st Airborne, they ended up wasting those units.
Yeah.
After Market Garden, they were just sitting there in Holland.
Yeah, yeah. They every time they tried to, I think it was before Market Garden. Every time they wanted to use them, either Montgomery or Patton took the target.
Yeah.
So then they'd redo it, and they couldn't. And then after Market Garden, the 101st didn't fight again until they were sent into Bastogne.
Well, they did fight, but they never left the front line. They were. You can see it in Band of Brothers.
Great scene.
Great movie. I mean, it's a great series, great book. They sat there in Holland, guarding this road, because what else they paratroops and special forces are not designed for prolonged deployment.
No.
They're not. They're not equipped for it. But they had to stick around because, okay, we're here.
Yeah.
Who are we going to give it to? The Brits?
Yeah, we lost so many troops. We got to sit here and fill the gap.
Yes.
Speaking of Band of Brothers, since we do battle-tested history, I was reading a review of it. They got some of the old 101st guys, some of the people who were actually in the movie and who were there. There is one flaw in the Band of Brothers. Do you know what it is?
Probably, but I can't think of it at the moment.
Every time they get together and talk, they take their helmets off and chat. And the only reason they did that was so the viewers would know, because if everybody was wearing their helmets, they all blended together. So they did that so you'd know which character was talking. But other than that, they said that was the only major flaw in the whole series.
Well, it's like the same thing with Saving Private Ryan.
Yes. Oh, God.
It was really accurate, except for, when they're moving cross country, they were all bunched up.
Yeah.
Which would have never happened.
The battle scenes were very accurate. The rest of the movie was, it's like Fury. I love that movie because the battle scenes are extremely accurate, except for the fight with the Tiger Tank. Because I don't think if I was the Tiger Tank, I wouldn't go into the battle. Because if you've seen Fury, the four Shermans have a fight with a Tiger. And after the Tiger takes out one tank, it leaves its lair to go after the Shermans. I don't think any Tiger would have done that. He would have just sat there and just picked off the Shermans one by one. But we're going down a military rabbit hole.
Oh, yes.
It is a good movie. I love the movie. I've seen it probably 20 times. I never get bored with it. I think it's great. Yeah, it's dated. But it's still a great movie. All the actors in it are phenomenal. John Ratzenberger, Cliff from Cheers, is in it. It's hard to spot him because he has a no-name character. But you've got Julian Schell, Jürgen Proust, you've got
Robert Redford, you've got James Caan, you've got
Elliot Gould,
Sean Connery.
Yes.
Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
The Polish.
Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman.
Yeah. Jeff and I were talking about this before we went on the air. I miss those huge blockbuster, accurate war movies. That, A Bridge Too Far, and the original 1975 or 76 Midway with Charlton Heston and Henry Fonda. Not that piece of crap that they made a few years ago. Actually, no, I'm sorry. The one they made a few years ago was good. There were some historical inaccuracies. That one was good because it had Patrick Wilson. And I got to admit, I never thought I'd say this. I thought Woody Harrelson made a good Nimitz. The movie that I hate, and if my wife ever wants to torture me, she'll tie me down and make me watch
Pearl
it.
Harbor.
Harbor, yes. I watched it with my best friend.
That is such a piece of shit.
I watched it with my best friend Curtis, and we were throwing things at this big screen TV. Like, there's the story, and I know we're diverging. Dory Miller, who was played by, I can't remember the actor who played him. It was the Show Me the Money guy. And he was a cook with no military training. And during Pearl Harbor, he ran up, grabbed a .50 caliber machine gun, and took down a Japanese Zero.
That was based on an actual person.
Right.
But they didn't actually shoot down. I think they only shot down 3 Zeros.
Dory Miller shot down one plane. Maybe it was one of the dive bombers or the torpedo bombers. But in Pearl Harbor, they have him shooting across the deck of the next battleship to get the plane. It's like, nobody is that stupid.
No.
But the movie was horrible.
Yes, it was.
But see, that's what I liked about like this one. It is a good movie. You could watch this and get a really good idea of what happened in the battle.
Bridge of Remagen is another one.
Yeah.
It had some inaccuracies, but I mean, Robert Vaughn is a Nazi. Awesome.
And there were also, as Jeff and I were talking about, there were the movies that had great casts that were fictional, but were fun. The Guns of Navarone, Force 10 from Navarone, Tora, Tora, Tora. Yes, thank you, Tim. That was one of the most accurate movies. And my favorite movie, my favorite war movie, my favorite spy movie, Where Eagles Dare.
Yep.
That movie, I was like halfway through the movie, I'm like, it was such a great espionage movie. Halfway through it, I'm like, what the F is going on? Who is who? Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? If you like war, if you like espionage, Where Eagles Dare, with Clint Eastwood and Richard Burton.
Yeah. Also, Guns of Navarone.
Yes.
Never actually happened, but you wish it had.
Yeah. And the actors in that, the dynamic between Anthony Quinn and Gregory Peck was just, that made the movie. The fact that it was Germans and big guns and espionage. You know,
David Niven,
yes. And Force 10 from Navarone. I mean, everything else. Who played the German partisan? Carolyn Monroe. Watch it just for that.
I know.
But this movie is one of my favorite war movies. And like I said, not just because I've got that, the connection with my father. We sat there and we watched. Then he went out like later that week, and I said, "Dad, I want the book," and he took me to the bookstore and we bought it. Kelly's Heroes. Yeah,
love that movie.
Yeah,
always with the negative waves.
I love, and the funny thing is that movie is so great, but it's more of it's almost like a 1970s heist flick.
Well, yeah, in the first place, it never actually happened.
Oh, yeah, it never would. And I mean, there's never, oh God, Sutherland's character in that was so out of place for World War II, but it's still absolutely great.
Have a little faith, baby.
I don't need your help. I can pick up 100 feet of Bailey Bridge.
Almost anywhere. Schmuck. Yeah, excellent.
And like the scene that always gets me is when they walk up to the Tiger tank at the end, you know, when they're having the showdown, and Donald Sutherland pulls the pistol out and has these thick tanker's gloves on. There's no way he would be able to get his finger into the trigger, but it's still a fun, great movie.
Oh yeah. And
those Tiger tanks, even though they were fake, they weren't real tigers. They looked realistic.
They did look realistic.
Yeah.
Hang on 1 second.
Yeah, Tim, I think you were right with your comment about Guderian saying that each Tiger tank was worth 10 trips. I didn't know this until I did some research. A lot of American tankers never confronted a Tiger tank. There were so few of them.
Yep.
A lot of them got wiped out during the Fillet Gap.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that was another. Anyway,
they never made a movie about that. That's a shame.
It is. It is. Here's a little fun fact. Kelly's Heroes. John Landis, the director, was a production assistant on Kelly's Heroes. He wrote the original script for American Werewolf in London while working on that movie.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing that somewhere. Yeah, that is just a fun movie.
Oh, it was. Yeah. But yes, Sherman was designed as an interesting sport track. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They were built because they were fast, and they could be made easily and in great numbers, and they were easy to repair. That was the good thing about Shermans. Otherwise, they were suicide boxes.
Yeah.
There were
because if a Sherman broke down, you could just like go out at night, tow it back, and fix it.
Yep.
Tiger tanks had to be, and King Tigers had to be abandoned.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, Market Garden, Monty was a tool.
Yeah.
Could get 5 days of training and off you go. It's true. Yeah, the problem with Montgomery, he was so timid. He, like you said, he would wait and build up forces and build up forces and build up forces until he couldn't help but win.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but you're not going to win a war that way.
But was it timidity or was it just that mindset? These, 3-1 odds, these are the rules of the game. When you look at the heroes of World War II, Patton, who broke all the rules, George Kenney, 5th Air Force, Southwest Pacific, threw the rule book out the window. When you look at all of the guys who, Spruance, during the Battle of Midway.
Well, hell, even Omar Bradley.
Yeah, when they, these are the guys that took the rule book, threw it out the window, and they won. And I read, I think it was a Soviet that was saying that, they weren't afraid of the Germans, they weren't afraid of the French, they weren't afraid of the British because they followed the rule book. It was the Americans that they were terrified of because they had no idea what we were going to do. Because we changed the rules. We did what we wanted to do. We did what worked at the time.
Well, and that was Eisenhower.
Yeah. Yes.
That was Eisenhower. He gave his commanders more or less free rein.
Yeah.
Terrain will always dictate. Yes, he definitely didn't respect the terrain.
Yeah.
Well, his most famous battle, El Alamein.
Yeah.
He damn near lost it. Even with the incredible numerical superiority he had, he still almost lost that battle.
Be interesting to wonder if he would have lost it if the Germans didn't have to pull out so many forces to head west.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
Plus, you figure also when you get to Sicily, you know, it was set up. All Monty had to do was go up the East Coast and hit Messina.
He had the easy job.
He had the easy job, and Patton went along the South Coast and the whole North Coast and still beat him to Messina.
Yeah, there's an interesting quote from the movie Patton, where Patton is complaining to Bradley, played by Carl Malden.
Yeah.
Incredible. Artillery did, Brits had a shitload of it. Yep. When Patton is complaining to Bradley, that's what happens when your general is an ally. He was. They gave the Brits lead in a number of operations that they shouldn't have, because Monty was Monty.
And it was part political.
It was hugely political.
You know, I mean, you had to get, the Brits probably would not have survived if it wasn't for Lend-Lease.
No.
And, you know, they lost their entire empire. I mean, the whole Pacific Empire was wrapped up in less than 6 months, except for India. I mean, they lost Singapore, you know, in the first couple of months. They lost their 2 best battleships out there. You know, I mean, it was, a lot of it was just, let's throw a few bones to the British, you know, so they can feel like they're contributing. And I don't mean it, wait a minute, that sounds mean, but they wanted to give, they wanted to have the British at the helm a little bit. The problem was that the British gave it to Montgomery.
Yeah. Well, Sicily.
Yeah.
It should have been the Americans running that show, not the Brits.
No.
It should have been the Americans taking point. They had more people. They had more equipment. The only thing that the Brits had that the Americans didn't is more experience.
Yeah.
Most of that experience was losing. Sorry, but that's the truth. They got beaten in the Battle of France. They got beaten at Dunkirk. They nearly got beaten at El Alamein, and they got beaten all across North Africa before Alamein.
But I will argue on the British side, that made them realize they weren't cocky like we were when we landed in North Africa. When the Free French gave up and we walked on shore and we thought, that's it, we'll be home by Christmas. And then we walked into a place called Kasserine Pass.
Which, now there is an argument made that the reason we got our asses kicked at Kasserine Pass was because of the command structure. It was an American force led by British commanders, relying on the Brits to give them air support, which they didn't do. And the Brits, the whole time, were looking down their noses at the Americans the whole time during North Africa.
Yeah.
Because Bradley really had to fight in order to get, even to take part in the final takeover of North Africa.
Yeah.
And it was what Bradley did that was the key to the final victory.
Yeah, Bradley did a lot for that. I mean, Patton gets most of the credit for it, but you see a bit in the movie Patton. I mean, it was Bradley. He was loved by the troops. He knew what he was doing. He got them, he got them right. Yeah, I think it's pointed out perfectly when Patton shows up at the American headquarters after the Battle of Kasserine Pass. And the American troops are shoddy. They're not wearing their uniforms right. They show up late. Mm-hmm. I think that was, and I think that happens everywhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at how the Soviets got their butts handed to them in the first few days of Barbarossa. The French, even the British after the invasion of France. Mm-hmm. I think it would have been, if somebody had attacked Germany first, I think Germany probably would have had that problem. But Germany worked out all of its kinks in Sudetenland, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland.
Yeah, there was a huge missed opportunity during the Sitzkrieg, the so-called phony war.
Yeah.
Because had the French and the British moved straight into Germany at the beginning of it, they'd have taken it.
Yeah.
They'd have kicked the shit out of the German forces because so many of them were on the Eastern Front.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were still...
I think there is, and I know this is going down a weird rabbit hole, and maybe someday we could do a show on this. I think there was a lot more to Hess's going to Scotland than we're going to know about for a long time.
Possibly.
I think he was there to see someone about removing Winston Churchill, putting a new king in charge, and ending the war on the Western Front.
Possibly, but Hess was a bit of a loon.
he was, yeah, he had his moments. But why was he the only one that got life in prison and never allowed out of Nuremberg? Speer, who used slave labor, 20 years. Donuts should never have gone to prison. The only reason he went was because he was Fuhrer for like 7 days after Hitler killed himself.
Yeah.
Hess was not there for the Wannsee Conference. He was there for the Nuremberg Laws. He wasn't there for the Wannsee Conference. Wait a minute. Yeah, he was in Germany for the Wannsee Conference, but he was never a part of it. He wasn't there for the Holocaust. He wasn't there for most of the stuff they put him in prison for. I think there was something going on. I think he was supposed to meet with somebody in Scotland, and Britain would have bowed out of the war with a new king, new prime minister, and it failed, and that's why he went into jail. Because I find it hard to believe that he was able to get a plane, fly all across Europe to London, and nobody knew about it. Hitler was shocked by this.
Yeah, well, there's also the possibility that Hess did it to get it back into Hitler's good graces. Because once the war part of Nazism took over, once they had secured Germany and they developed the Nuremberg Laws and everything else, Hess was kind of shunted to the side in favor of Goering and Goebbels and Himmler and those guys. So there is an argument that can be made that Hess did what he did in flying to Scotland to say, hey, Adolf, I'm still here.
Yeah, look at me, buddy. But, I read a book and it didn't make sense. Nobody saw this plane flying across Germany and said, hey, who are you? Send up some fighters, bring them down. I really do think there's something hidden there. That Hitler wrote him off because it failed, that the British threw him in jail and would never let him go so he could tell his story.
Possible. Well,
because
he did
if I
eventually
remember,
get out, didn't he?
No, he died in jail.
Did he?
He was the only one. After 20 years, they released Donuts, Speer. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I don't think they released Donuts. I think Donuts got 10 years. But they released Speer and a whole bunch of others. And they kept Speer, not Speer, they kept Hess there from like 1967 until he died in the 1990s by himself.
Yeah.
So, but that's another show.
That is another show, and we have reached the end of the hours. He hanged himself days before he was going to be released.
Or
did he?
Yes. Because nobody said he was upset. He was happy about being released.
Would you be?
I don't know. I always thought I would be. But then, sometimes I feel for the James Whitmore character, Brooks, in Shawshank Redemption. If you've lived most of your life in prison, it's like North Koreans who escaped to South Korea, where all of a sudden you can live where you want. You can eat what you want. You can watch what you want on TV. Some of these people defect back. They can't handle it.
Sure.
I wasn't going to say that, Tim, but I'm glad you did.
But anyway, we have reached the end of the hour.
Yes.
Another great episode. Clearly, way more to talk about when we're talking about the Second World War. I mean, this is what, the fourth, I think?
Yeah. Most of us have been on. We did British intelligence and Operation Mincemeat. And we've done a couple. I think we did Nazi occult.
We did Nazi occult. We did Nazis and UFOs.
Yeah. And then we did a few other historic. I think we did Jack the Ripper.
Mm-hmm. We did World War I.
Yeah.
And Gettysburg.
Yes. We'll have to think of something new and different next time.
How about Zulu?
Oh my God, I love those movies. All right.
Someday. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Tim, there is no such thing as a poor writer. There's a writer that's just developing.
That's right.
You should read. Nobody has. One person, my best friend Curtis, who's no longer with us because he read my book. My first book is a piece of shit. I would publish it now if you paid. Well, maybe if you paid me a lot. It's crap. Everybody's first few things they write is crap. You learn the style. Don't worry, Tim. You'll get there.
Yeah, the first 4 novels I wrote have never seen the light of day.
Yeah.
Justifiably so.
Yeah.
So the 5th one I wrote, which was You Never Ready for a Zombie Apocalypse, even today remains my #1 bestseller.
Yeah. And it's worth it. I'm telling you. I got so hooked on that series. And I'm reading Operation Mayhem.
Epic Mayhem.
Yep. Epic Mayhem. Sorry. And I wish you'd finish the damn.
Well, that was my original plan.
Yeah.
But now that I had this 2-month gap in November and December, just for those of you who don't know, November and December is when the big publishing companies spend the bulk of their advertising at Christmas to promote their big writers. So between November and December, it's almost a complete waste of time for us at this level to publish during November and December.
Yeah.
Because we just get buried. So Full Metal Zombie, Welcome to the City, and Body Count have all been published in the last 3 months.
Right.
I could do the third of the Epic Mayhem books and just crank it out and get it out.
No, wait till what is the name of the Jellystone? No, that's a completely different. What's the name of the Yellowstone?
Pressure.
What's it?
Pressure.
Read those. I was blown away by the first one. No pun intended.
I will do the third one between now and January.
Okay.
The third Epic Mayhem book is slated for release January 3rd. They only take me a few weeks to write them. So it will be written and then I'll finish Pressure.
Good.
So that, probably beginning of February, that'll come out.
Good.
Hopefully. But yeah, I mean, like we were talking before the show, the Epic Mayhem stories just write themselves.
Yeah.
I'm having so much fun. I'm having such a blast with it.
It's a fun book to read. It would make a perfect graphic novel.
Oh, yeah, it would.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would. And having Chet Amato and Jack Childress as inspiration for these characters, they're right there. Between those two and Dungeon Dan Newbell.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
These are some sick puppies, folks.
Yes.
And they've given me some real good ideas.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre. And I love the way I die.
Well, speaking of which, Epic Mayhem 3, Senseless Slaughter. The death list for that one now sits at 14 or 15. Plenty of room left if you should like to die horribly in a novel. Well, yes, Tim, sorry, we killed you rather. Well, we ripped your arms off, dude.
Well, don't tell me now. You're ruining it for me. I haven't got to Tim's death yet.
Tim will not be joining us again in Epic Mayhem, sorry. Because they're difficult. He'd be like the Black Knight in Monty Python.
We'll call it a draw.
I'll bite your legs off.
This but a flesh wound.
But yes, if you want to die in somebody's novel horribly, Tim,
I'm reading Tim's next comment.
But if you want to die in the next book, there's posts in the Asylum of Fear. Add your name to it. There's plenty of room, and you will die a horrible, pointless, utterly senseless death. But anyway, Scott Baker, what do you got coming up? You got a book coming up?
I have the second book in the Paul, the Chronicles of Paul 2, Errand of Mercy. It's on pre-release now. Go to Amazon or go to my page and find it, $2.99. It comes out it comes out Friday in time for Halloween, and then it goes up to $3.99. I am working on the next Nurse Alyssa book, which will come out in January, and I'm working on a special project that I'm hoping I can get out just before Christmas.
Cool.
Makes a nice gift.
Awesome.
And Jeff, what are you?
Also, Body Count, the second Epic Mayhem novel, comes out on Halloween. Also, the horror anthology, It Came From Hell, comes out the same day.
Wow.
I think it may come out the 29th. I don't know. But it's available for pre-order now. Myself and a bunch of writers from Asylum of Fear Good stuff, good cross-section of horror. And this coming Saturday, on the Padded Room, we will be doing a Halloween celebration. There is no topic. So it's going to be a free-for-all. Be afraid.
And bring your bags for candy.
In any event, well, who knows what we'll do 2 weeks from now anyway. Excuse me. On the next Battle Tested History. But we will be back in 2 weeks.
Yep.
With something informative and hopefully amusing. And until then...
With us, it's always amusing.
That's right. So thank you, Scott.
Thank
you, Tim. Thank you, Jen, for popping in.
Happy Halloween to everyone.
Happy Halloween, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Ciao.
Take it easy.